Well, normally you'll record just your side, and then later on I'll go in and just fill in the gaps with my commentary. So we usually do it separately.
I talked to myself for just short of 2 hours.
Yeah, it's tricky, but, it works for us. All right, so it's been a little bit since we recorded. I've had family in town and such, but I think we've got a bit to talk about.
I think we do. I have a lot to talk about, and I have purposefully eliminated some lesser things. Like I did more show note processing than I ever have before for this show. So maybe that'll blow up in my face, but maybe it'll go well. I don't know yet. It's a learning experience.
Well, sounds like nothing but premium topics this episode. We've got it really whittled down.
Yeah, and the other bonus for this one is that I am drinking a little bit, so that should help. It'll be more fun. I mean, they even made a thing out of this, like drunk history.
Yeah.
And why is this not the default?
Yeah, no. I'm not good at talking to people, so I should probably do that too. I've got some good Japanese whiskey back in the apartment.
Ooh. Does that make it? Well, that's not sake.
No. Yeah, Japanese. So it's hibiki. It's a, I guess, distillery in Japan. The original guy, I think this is the same distillery, but trained basically for a long time in Scotland.
Okay.
And then came to Japan, made his own thing. It's kind of a blend of a bunch of whiskeys, but it's really good stuff.
I think I saw that when I was at your place one time.
The Japanese whiskey is new, but I have a bunch of bourbons and brandies and things like that. Are you a whiskey drinker?
When in Kentucky, you gotta embrace the bourbon, right? And I have. That's been my kind of go-to little thing that I've had around, and it's pretty good. I mean, I don't know. I'm getting into cocktails, I think.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a Pim's cup? Did we talk about this?
No, I haven't. I've never heard of that. Pim's cup?
Yeah. It's like, okay, you know how, so there's the Kentucky Derby here in Kentucky, right?
Right.
And that has the mint julep as its drink. And I don't know if have you had a mint julep?
Yeah, they're very good.
I was going to say they suck.
Or you get the copper mug and all that.
It's just it's pure alcohol to me, basically. And the Pim's cup is, I guess, the equivalent. I forget. There's some maybe horse race or something. Maybe Wimbledon. It's the drink of Wimbledon in England. So it's like their equivalent. And it's just a little bit of a liqueur thingy it's like Pim's. Like Pim's is the company and it's its own taste. So it's like a Dr. Pepper of spirits kind of thing.
Pim's the alcohol or the mix?
Pim's is the alcoholic thing. That it's only like 20% or something, but it's real good. It's kind of like maybe an orange taste, and then you just throw in some ginger ale, and then kind of you experiment with cucumbers and mint and stuff, and it's just super refreshing drink. I love it.
I feel like I would like that. I usually get I try to get different things all the time. I just like trying different ones, but I normally get old fashions.
Yeah, you like them strong then, because that's the other I think if I was gonna say 2 drinks that I've tried and hated, those might be the 2. But I like. I mean, the Pim's is nice and refreshing, but I've been trying to find a creamy drink that I can order, because I'm really not all about that alcohol taste, but alcohol can enhance the flavor. So,
you have a White Russian?
Yeah, well, there's a thing called Sneaky Pete, which is a lot of milk, and there's milk brandy punch or something like that. I don't know. I
have not had any of those.
There's one thing called a Ramos Fizz or some New Orleans Fizz. I don't know, but it's it looks frothy and it's got an egg yolk in it or something.
Yeah, I've had a few with egg yolk. They are good.
Okay, well that's a good amount of pre-podcast banter.
All right, where do we want to start?
I want you got some things, Gil. Let's talk about your things.
Well, this is something that probably not very many people listening will care about, so I'll speed through it. But I've changed my podcast editing setup completely. So before I was using GarageBand and I was editing using, some keyboard shortcuts, but mostly just pressing buttons. It was very slow. Since then, I've bought Logic, which has been great. It adds all kinds of features that are very helpful. But I've also started using a Wacom tablet, or however you pronounce that, and which is also really cool. So within Logic, I've mapped a bunch of shortcuts, and I've started using this thing called the marquee tool. So where before I would have to do like a split at the beginning of what I want to cut, a split at the end, then I would have to click on the middle piece, delete it, and then move the audio track back. Now all I have to do is what is essentially a highlight of that area, and then press a button on the pen tool, and it deletes that whole area, and it moves everything in front of that back to the beginning of that. So now I can basically edit without even having to pause because it's so fast in some cases, unless I'm doing something like kind of detailed. And then I have just basically my thumb on the space bar. I'm just like pressing pause and play and editing all at the same time, and it's like gotta be at least 5 times faster than what I was doing before.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. People might not know that we, at least at present, take turns editing the podcast, and it's supposed to be like every week, so every other week one of us edits. And it's funny because like we never collaborated really on the editing very much, so we kind of probably have our own little methods, especially with your tablet and all that. So
yeah,
but yeah, my goal is to listen at 2 times speed, and at the same time like edit ahead of the playhead, so that when the playhead gets to the stuff that I've edited it, I can like listen and hear that it's okay, and then not even stop. So it's like kind of theoretically possible to edit one of these at twice the speed, like the time that the episode is, have it edited at least one go in half the time of it, which is pretty cool.
So how are you editing before you've even gotten to the piece to know what you need to edit?
Well, okay, so sometimes it's just... So I break it, I use the little trim silence thing, or remove silence, and so it gives me a bunch of little small audio sample things, and if it's a really short one, a lot of times it's almost certainly just like some kind of agreement statement, and I try to move those so that they are like in the gaps in talking between us. And I don't know what it is. I swear the recordings aren't actually lined up, but they are lined up, and just whenever we say things to agree with one another, it always falls like slightly later than the gap in the other person talking. So
yeah, I found that a little bit too. I think that like our system's not super exact. So even if like I'm a split second delayed in all of my numbers that you were saying, if you sync that back up to where it's not like that, there's like a million things that could go wrong, and it just needs to be like half of a second off to be like screw with your brain a little bit.
Yeah, but basically just, if I see a small little thing that's probably like someone saying yes, I just move it to a gap. And then if, I kind of get a feel for what's just like white noise, and I can kind of trim that up. And if there's just a giant pause, I can, I get a feel for how many seconds that actually is, and I can just quickly remove it while the playhead is still, like, while it's real time playing back the sound. So
you do remove silence before you've edited, and that way you can just cut out bits and pieces.
Yeah, that's what I do.
That's a good idea. I haven't done that. I'm always editing. That's why the marquee tool is so helpful. But I guess if you did it that way, you could really just select all the pieces you wanted to delete and do the same like delete and move thing.
Well, I wouldn't even care if I could use remove silence, if I could use remove silence after I edited everything. But as far as I can tell, you can only remove silence on like one region at a time. So if I do it after, it's like, however many regions I end up with, which is like dozens. I got to run it each time, and I'm not doing that. So
really, you can't select the whole. You can't like do Command A and do it to everything.
Not that I've found. Maybe I'm just wrong, but I don't think that it's possible. So you got to start with that. And there's some other little annoyances with it. Like it leaves a little trail of silence after each clip, and I really just want like just the talking parts, and I can't figure out how to get it to give me just that, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
And actually, I wrote a guide, or not guide, but just like I kind of described my workflow on Reddit today, because somebody asked me like, give me, what are your tips on this? Because I was asking how to do something very specific. And I was like, okay. So I wrote out this pretty comprehensive just way that I go about editing. So that might make it into the show notes. But
yeah, I might want to read that. So speaking of Reddit, we've had some people commenting, or we've had 2 comments.
Yeah, we're famous, Gil.
From actual listeners, which is weird. And I can only assume it was the CEO of Spotify and some other place, but pretty cool.
Yeah. I was gonna say I have written here that we have actual feedback on the Reddit, which, I mean, to be fair, we had it, I guess, for a month and we didn't realize it because we didn't look.
Yeah.
Then somebody else also put something recently, right? So
yeah,
win-win. And the last episode I actually posted on Reddit, and yeah, we're off to a good start here. On the topic of Reddit, though, I do want to acknowledge. So this is my little part where I just complain about something on Reddit every time because it's just so kind of like old school. And then maybe you come in and say, "Oh, it's been fixed in the new version," but I don't use that version, so.
I haven't actually used a desktop browser in a while since I've moved to Seattle. I guess I don't have a lot of free time, but I always use the mobile version now because I just look at it on the bus.
Well, my new thing is that the cross post button. I've complained in the past that I'm pretty sure there just wasn't a cross post button, and that's fine. People just wrote cross post in their cross posts, but the cross post button that is there now is like, okay. I mean, it's fine. I don't really understand how it even works. Like it's a link to the other or the other thread or something. And that's confusing enough. But the other annoying thing is that you have to be subscribed to the subreddit to be able to cross-post to it, which I think is utter nonsense.
Really?
Yeah.
They're trying to push subscriptions that hard?
I think they might just be lazy and didn't want to put in like a search all of our subreddits. Because here's the thing. You can't really even search like for a subreddit that well on Reddit. And I don't think I ever have. I've Googled it. But the app, I think that when they did the app, they kind of revisited the issue, and it does have a good way to search for subreddits. Like they show up when you search it in real time.
There is a subreddit search too that's just not linked to from the main site.
Oh, maybe I might have literally never used that before, but I don't know. It's not in the crosspost little dialogue.
But yeah, the crosspost stuff that I've tried to use it, I think once or twice. And at the time I was using it, it was just like, it was limited to certain subreddits. It was like Ask Reddit and like a few others. It was like, I guess it was in beta or something. But yeah, I don't really get it either. And I guess it seems fine if you want to like, because if you're just like spamming the same post in a bunch of places, at least keeping them connected in some way, I guess could be helpful.
I like it because I can edit the body of the one post and it updates the other ones.
Oh,
which
okay.
is just a pain otherwise.
So what were you cross-posting, just out of curiosity?
I cross-posted my Logic for podcasting workflow.
Oh, okay.
From the Logic subreddit to the podcast and podcasting subreddits, which confused me because they're just extremely similar topics. I don't know why both exist, but
yeah, there's also like a podcasters one.
Nope. I've done my part. I'm not going there. I got some more kind of like a little bit follow-up-y type things to talk about, Gil.
All right.
We talked about how I have unfollowed everyone on Twitter, but update. I am now following, I think, 5 people on Twitter. And I want you to guess. I want you to guess who I'm following.
All right. Well, I would assume Elon Musk.
Yep.
The other 4, I have no idea.
So, you're correct on one of them. I'm actually looking now because I don't entirely remember. But yeah, I got 5.
Oh, Elon Musk and CGP Grey.
There you go. I was going to say you should be able to get 2.
Okay, yeah.
And then the other ones are, so 3 other ones. One is just this guy in a band that I like, and we'll leave it at that for that one. But then the other 2 are Nathan Fillion. Do you know who that is?
What was the last name?
Fillion? Nathan Fillion?
No, I don't know who that is.
So he is in a lot of stuff. He's in, like, Castle is his big recent thing. Like, he's the main guy in the show Castle.
Oh, okay. Huh.
But he was the lead for Firefly, and he's just a goofy, delightful guy. Like, when he travels around, he hides these little, like, keychains from the show and, like, tweets, like, how people can find them and things. And so, I don't know. I'm a fan.
So he's one of your 5. That's interesting. I'll have to check him out.
Yeah, well, he's kind of taking the spot because otherwise it would be the guy that writes XKCD, which is Randall Monroe. But he has, like, no web presence that I'm aware of, aside from the comics that he posts. So, but there's him, and it actually paid off recently because just, like, extremely recently. So he is pretty much the basis of the character of Nathan Drake in the video game series Uncharted. Like, they're extremely similar. And there's an Uncharted movie coming out. And, like, in 2010, Nathan Fillion heard about it, and he tweeted, like, if there was ever a campaign, Twitter, it is this. Get him to be the role of Nathan Drake in the movie. And it didn't happen, but recently, like 2 days ago, he released there was a little fan-made 15-minute YouTube short film of him as Nathan Drake. Like, he actually is playing this role. So he I don't know how this happened or how it worked out, but it's great.
Did I guess they just cut together some other things, or?
No, it's literally Nathan Fillion in a real life, action, like live action depiction of Uncharted.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. So I'm glad I followed him. And then the last one I have here I really like. It is called Moon Reminder. It's at Moon Reminder. And all it does is every, like, couple days or couple weeks, it says, go look at the moon. That's it.
So can't you... Why... Hold on, I have questions.
What's the questions?
So... That's all it says? There are no moon facts? There's not, it's a full moon? It just says go look at the moon?
No. No, this is what I love about it. I'll read you verbatim. Folks, here's your monthly reminder to go outside and look at the moon. And then the next tweet is, go outside and look at the moon. That's all it is.
Why don't you just make that like a recurring reminder on your phone?
No, because it's fun. I like the personality here. Like, there's some exclamation points and things. And it's nice because I could not possibly get caught up in this because all it is go look at the moon. And it's a nice reminder. The moon is very beautiful.
I was going to ask why you decided to go to subscriptions, but 20% of it is just a reminder to look at the moon. And before you were just searching for the people you wanted to look at. And I assume you won't want to search for the go look at the moon page.
Yeah, the first one to be added back was the moon. And then I figured it just makes it slightly more convenient if I can just scroll until I find Elon's profile. And I don't know, sometimes Grace has some interesting stuff, so it's experimental. We'll see. I guess this was a bit of a follow-up item. I had talked about watches, I think, in a previous episode, right?
Yeah.
And my new idea here. So I want a kind of rugged-ish, kind of good-looking-ish watch that has lots of functionality, okay? And part of that is I want it to have a battery that lasts a long time. And so my new plan possibly is get an Apple Watch and turn off everything that wastes battery. So none of the heart rate monitoring, none of the no wireless communication at all. Essentially turn it into kind of a dumb watch.
So even I would imagine even in best case scenario, you're gonna get a day and a half out of the Apple Watch. So what is the difference between a day and a half if you still have to charge it every day?
If it's a day and a half, yeah, this experiment will have failed. My theory, I'm basing this off of On Apple's website, they say once you hit 10%, you can put the watch in that power reserve mode.
Mm-hmm.
And at 10%, it will last, I think, 72 hours. Yeah. That's what they say.
But that's just time, though.
Yeah, that just tells you the time.
Yeah.
So my theory is that, like, so 10% is 72 hours, 3 days. In theory, it can go in power reserve mode for 30 days. In theory. Now, power reserve just does the time, but I'm wondering if I have it turned on and all the other stuff off, what is the battery drain? Is it kind of similar to power reserve? I'm betting I might be able to get like a week or maybe even 2 or maybe 3, and that makes it worth it.
And you're not trying to get 100% of the power reserve savings. You're just saying if you turn off all of the sensors and all of that, and even, I guess, connection to the phone, that you could get a week. Because the Bluetooth connection alone, while I think there's some special like connection other than Bluetooth, although maybe it is just like standard Bluetooth, but I imagine that's a large part of the battery drain as well.
Well, I was thinking pretty much maybe I take it out occasionally if I want to use some advanced features and it's worth the battery drain for me, but mostly have it in airplane mode with the sensors for activity tracking turned off.
Gotcha. Okay.
In theory, I don't know if maybe it's not programmed this way because they don't expect anyone to use it in this manner, but in theory, it has the ability to last that long. Like, the technology is there. I don't know if the software is written in such a way to allow it.
Yeah. And the big thing you're wanting out of this are, what was it? There were timers.
Actually, I have a list. Let me go to my list here of what I want in a watch. So, perfect watch for me. Simple design, always on display. I'm not going to get that with the Apple Watch, but it's not like a huge deal, so I'm okay with that. Battery life, as long as possible. Ideally, it's like years, which is possible in simple digital watches, but I'll take a week. Timers and functionality, useful. Outdoorsy, it's not like the Apple Watch is outdoorsy, but it's not the most fragile thing in the world, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm okay with its outdoorsiness. And that's pretty much the end of the list. I would also there's these cool watches that have solar panels like built around the face of them, so you can't even really tell. But they'll charge, and then they basically last forever and don't need a battery ever. So that's pretty cool. But basically, it's those things that I just said: just battery life, functionality, and design.
Well, last time we talked, there were some like timer stuff that you wanted. So I imagine that would be the reason to get a smartwatch at all. So if those are the only things you're looking for, why not just do a digital watch?
Well, because, Gil, I want the thing that I described before, which is I call it the mission clock mode. And it just basically, I want a timer until an alarm. I want it to count down until an alarm. And to solve this problem, I have begun development of an application for the Apple Watch, and it's actually almost done because it's really not too complicated. I've never really made an app before, but I kind of copied some other people's code, and it's kind of just like, duct taping different pieces of code together.
Yeah.
But I almost pretty much have it down, and there's other features I'd want to add, but I can make my own tool with this, and that's what I love here with the Apple Watch is I can make an app that has a complication that will run, exactly what I want it to do.
I'd be interested to use that when you finish it, just to see what it's like.
I was gonna ask for your developer account actually, because I don't have one.
Yeah, that's fine. We can even launch it, and it can be the Thinkularity Apple Watch complication.
Actually, I love this. That would be amazing.
Our first official thing. So Hello Internet has all their official things. We'll have the official timer complication of Thinkularity.
Yeah, and what's cool too is, so Apple Watch has this feature that if you could turn it on, it will, if you leave, what is it? So if the watch is off and you turn it back on, there's a setting where it'll default to the home screen or whatever.
Yeah.
But somewhere in the settings, you can, I think, make it indefinitely stay on the one app that it's on.
Yeah.
And if you do that, you essentially can make an app your home screen. And so basically, I'm thinking I might just have this thing function as my home screen altogether and not just have it as a complication.
Yeah, and you can't launch this in the App Store because it would get rejected, but if you're making it just for yourself, you could even put the time on there so that you have the time and all that.
You don't think it'd be rejected because it has the time on it?
Yeah, it would. That's essentially making a custom watch face, which Apple doesn't want.
Oh, well, so okay, here's a workaround that I think by default, unless you disable it when you're creating an app, apps will have, it's like a little system time up in the corner.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So it would have the time, and then it would just basically be my timer thingy, and it's like that would work. And so it would be fine. And I could at least deploy it on my own watch, and they couldn't do anything about it, but I think I could get it into the store as well.
Yeah, and that's basically what you wanted too, because the first thing when you were talking about it the first time was that you wanted the time to be small, but the timer to be large, which is what that would be.
Yeah.
So that sounds like a perfect idea for what you're looking for.
So I'm really happy about this. Hopefully, I also have to get an Apple Watch in this, and then I have to see if it really will last a while.
Mm-hmm.
But if those things happen, then it'll be pretty close to kind of the perfect watch, on top of them adding podcast support and this walkie-talkie thing that I might actually like, and shortcuts. Apple Watch is making more sense.
Yeah. I don't know anybody else with the Apple Watch. I see Apple Watches all the time, but nobody that I interact with has one. So, it'll be nice to have somebody to test out the walkie-talkie with.
Yeah, I'd like to see what % of iPhone owners have also a watch.
Yeah, there's a developer. His name's _David Smith. He's built a lot of activity tracking apps. He said a number one time, but it was less than 1%. It was very little.
Yeah, I'd believe that.
Yeah, I'm due for a new one though. I got the original one the day that it came out, and that's the one that I'm still using. And it's got a big crack along the top because I wore it rock climbing, and it skid across it, and it's dying at 9 p.m. every day. So I'm hoping. I really want a thinner Apple Watch. So I'm hoping. I'm hoping we'll get some sort of update later this year.
Yeah, I'm almost tempted to say we're past that with Apple, or they just don't what's the last thing they made thinner? I don't know. They've got stuff pretty thin now.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, but the watch is something that I don't want the iPhone to get any thinner because at that point it's uncomfortable to hold.
Mm-hmm.
I could go for the watch being a little thinner though.
Yeah, I think it's likely, especially since its design hasn't changed at all.
Right.
And it's not even something that if they change the design, it would ruin, there's been times in the past with iPhone changes, it's all these docks don't work or whatever, but with the watch, I don't know, what are you going to change? If it's just thinner, everything still works. So, I think that might be likely.
Yeah, and they're moving to the Qi charging anyway. Or the latest watch has that. If they ever launch their Magic Pad or whatever that they had for this Qi charger that charges 3 devices at a time.
Oh yeah, that is not launched yet.
Yeah, no, I've been waiting however long for that to come out, and it still hasn't. But yeah.
Okay, I got a question for you, Gil.
All right.
This is a little bit inspired by a Hello Internet conversation, but my question to you is: do you think this is a discussion? This is back to our artificial intelligence discussion. Do you think it is possible that it could be not possible for artificial intelligence to exceed the intelligence of a human?
I guess nothing is 100%, but I would say it's a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percentage. I think it's fairly certain that artificial intelligence will be much smarter than a human.
It looks likely, but this is the thing that, it's a classic, I think, engineering example. So when Challenger exploded, at least the way I was taught it, is that basically they had a graph and they extrapolated past the points that they had data on. And technically that doesn't really work. And so the point is we don't really have data on future points.
Yeah.
And so as much as we feel like it makes sense for technology to just exponentially increase and, crazy possibilities, I just want to acknowledge that it's possible that might not be the case.
Yeah. There could be some law of thermodynamics that just doesn't allow that much processing to go on. But at the other end, our brain does it, so something else could do it.
Here's my argument. I concede that you could get a thing that you create to be equal to or a human computational knowledge, right? Or abilities, because we do it. And so obviously this has to be possible, right? It came about by whatever processes. So definitely we can do that. The thing is, though, that it might be that, like, we're really efficient, right? And this whole thing with like the supercomputers that aren't even on the level of a human brain or whatever, take ridiculous amounts of power. And so it may be the case that, and you run into all these limits where like, okay, it just needs more power, but at some point you hit like a limit type thing where more power just creates more like other resources that you need, like more, you hit kind of a catch-22 where you do have a limit. And so I'm thinking it's possible that the human brain is about as efficient as it gets. Some humans are smarter than others, and I'm sure we could get like a little bit smarter. But I just want to acknowledge the possibility that, it's not guaranteed that even in millions and millions of years, we will have some kind of super intelligence that, exceeds the intelligence of humanity altogether.
Well, I think it depends on what we're defining as intelligent, because even if we get like the processing power down of a human and it gets no better, even if it's like, 3/4 or a half of the processing power of a human, we do know that whatever that thing is would have access to basically unlimited storage space that they never forget. That alone would make them smart enough to be much smarter than any human. They would have the collective knowledge of every human, basically. But like if we asked that thing to cure cancer, maybe it couldn't do that, but it could, like I said, I think we at the very, very, very least, it would be the sum of all human knowledge.
Well, but then it would compete with, I'm saying, like, what if we consider a scenario here where the only way to have something comparable to human level intelligence, regardless of this, like the only way to do this is for it to essentially be a human brain. Like it could be grown in a lab and it could be programmed very specifically or whatever, but maybe like our brains are actually the highest level of technology that is possible. Like people think we're going to have supercomputers that are just like all metal and silicon and things, and it might be the case that those cap out and that the actual top level computers are our brains, and our brains are very efficient. So I'm saying you could maybe only create a brain, and there's some other things I don't remember right now, but like once you get past a certain size brain, it becomes like infeasible. Like you can't just increase the size of a brain. So it might be the case, maybe, that essentially just creating a human-like brain is the pinnacle of computing. And in that case, of course, you can like plug it into the internet, but you could also plug human brains into the internet if you can plug that brain into the internet.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that that's a possibility, definitely.
Yeah, I don't think it's likely, but I want to bring up the kind of absurdity of the universe here. And it's just basically every time humans argue whether we have like which way something's going to go, the universe, it's like it has a personality and it laughs in our face. So I have a list here. And it's ways that the universe behaves in totally unexpected ways. So the first one I have is the center of the universe, right? So there's a big argument back in the day, are humans the center of the universe, right?
Yeah.
And, so religious people were like, we are the center of the universe because God and things, right? And the scientists were like, no, we're not the center of the universe. And guess what, Gil? They were both wrong. It's just because the universe is tricky. And it figured out a way that we are the center of our universe, right? Which is to say, space is expanding. And no matter where you are in the universe, if you look at all of the stuff around you, all of it is moving away from you. It's like surface of a balloon kind of thing.
Oh, I see where you're going, yeah.
Yeah, so the expansion of like space-time means that everything is the center of the universe. And it's just like, it's funny because no one considered that possibility, and they like, very vehemently argued back and forth. Is that a word? Vehemently? What is the word?
Vehement? I don't know.
Vehemently? Whatever. Very passionately, they argued back and forth on whether or not we were the center of the universe. And it turns out, you know what? Like, both. So there's that, and I have a couple more examples. The other one is time dilation. Are you familiar with this?
No.
So this is a physics concept. You've heard this equation that says, what is it? Okay, so with time dilation, you've got the equation. Let's forget about that for a second. The equation for speed. It is like velocity equals distance over time, right?
Yeah.
And this is this thing where you learn stuff in school and like it's just kind of simplified and basically they're lying to you. And they're not, because it's kind of true in almost all cases, but technically, what happens is as you approach the speed of light, this like weird thing happens where the actual constant in the universe is the speed of light, not time. Time is not constant.
Okay. Yeah, I do know of what you're talking about. I didn't know it by that, though.
Yeah. Well, so what you end up with is if you get near the speed of light, like 90% the speed of light. So if you go 99% the speed of light, you can't get to 100%. It's impossible. If you have mass, it becomes, you require more and more energy, and it's kind of like an asymptote that just approaches infinity, where you just cannot possibly add enough energy that something with mass can reach the speed of light.
Yeah.
So what that means in some kind of crazy way that Einstein figured out is that if you get near the speed of light, you effectively get time travel. So at 90% the speed of light, if you travel for like an hour, or this is a bad example because I haven't actually done the math, but if you travel, let's just say really close to the speed of light for an hour, depending on how close to the speed of light that you travel, you will end up not 1 hour in the future relative to like the Earth where you left. So you could, for example, go to some faraway star system at near the speed of light and come back to Earth, and it maybe took you, 2 days, and it's been like years and years on Earth.
Right. I think it's Stephen Hawking that gives the example of like, if you were to like, say you're like on a train that's going like 5 miles an hour under the speed of light, and then you run to the front of that train, you're at like 10 miles per hour. You would never hit past the speed of light, because at that point time would start, or not at that point, but like leading up to that point, time would start moving, I guess, more slowly for you. So if you run, like if you're in that train going near the speed of light or whatever,
yeah,
for 10 minutes, you could stop the train and it'd be like 400 years later.
Yeah, and you don't feel like it's slower, right? Like time relative to you is always just
right.
It feels normal. But like relative, this is theory of relativity. Relative to the Earth or whoever else that wasn't moving fast, you have moved into the future. This is kind of covered in Interstellar, I guess. But the point here is the argument used to be kind of like, oh, the universe is vast, and like to cover the distances to the stars would take, hundreds of years and human lifetimes and things like that, But basically, all those arguments are invalidated by the fact that you can get to any star in an hour if you're going close enough to the speed of light. So I'm just like, infinite distances of space and time, it doesn't matter because you can traverse them in very quick amounts of time relative, like from your own perspective. It's just the people around you, you get there in an hour, Earth's civilization has since perished. But whatever, you're across the universe, you don't care about Earth's civilization.
I guess I'm thinking, I guess you're right, because if you're going, was the nearest star like 50 light years away or something? So, yeah, I guess you're right. If you were to go to the speed of light, that 50 light years is referring to Earth time. So it would be like a split second.
Yeah, you could do it as fast as, you're not limited.
Yeah.
You can't do it instantaneously because that would require the speed of light, but you just approach the speed of light closer and closer. And you can traverse the universe very quickly. So I think that's a funny one where people were back and forth on. It wasn't a huge point of contention, but it was like this, like, oh, it'll take so long to get there. No, it won't.
Yeah, it was just like a commonly accepted thing for a long time until they're like, oh wait,
yeah,
we learned something.
The next one I have here is free will, which, still kind of a little bit up in the air, I guess. But what you get when you boil it down here with quantum mechanics is people argued like, oh no, the universe is set in stone and everything is predictable and we live in a deterministic reality. And then the other side was like, no, we have the ability to make choices and we have free will and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And what it boils down to here is like, you're both kind of wrong, where we have, it's kind of, and people might correct me because I might be wrong, but it's kind of a deterministic universe in that we don't have, there's nothing that allows for us to have control, right? It is technically just a machine that is running, like human consciousness is just a series of reactions and things like that, is what it seems. But even though that's the case, this quantum mechanics allows basically for the fact that at such small levels, it's not possible to know information. So not only do we not have free will, but we can't predict the future. It's physically impossible. Like by the most fundamental theories, we cannot learn everything and extrapolate out to the future. So it's not deterministic, but at the same time, there's not there's not a free will component. So I just think that's kind of a funny one where the universe was like, hey, you guys are arguing. Here's the answer.
It's just, at least I don't have like a strong stance, but I kind of accept, I think, if you know all of, like, what you were saying, that you can't know all of the inputs, but if you do know all of the inputs, and then you could predict what was going to happen, which makes it deterministic. Not that it was designed, but just if you know all the inputs up to this second, you'll know what happened the next second, and then the same thing for that second, and so on. But you're just saying there's no way to gather and process and do all of that information in a way that's helpful, because you can only do that at split seconds at a time, because you need to know what's happening next second to know what's going to happen after that. So you couldn't predict the future in any meaningful way.
Yeah, like, so if it weren't impossible, you could kind of, in theory, know everything, but it is impossible. And then even then you have kind of a question of, could you simulate within the universe, perfectly and at faster than real time? Because it seems like that might be an impossibility, but we don't have to worry about it because we have quantum mechanics that makes that impossible in the first place. So this is funny to me. And then I have the last one here is teleportation. And so Gray even has a video about this where it's like, what if you get teleported? Does it count? But the thing is, and I don't totally understand this one, but there's a minute physics video kind of explaining it. Quantum mechanics, again, allows for teleportation, but not copying. And so the classic argument is like, well, if you have a teleporter, then, what happens is basically the person on the beginning side gets just killed, and then we copy him and we reassemble him at the other place, and it's like morally unethical or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But if we look at quantum mechanics, and this does require that the human brain operates on some kind of quantum mechanical level, which I'm not sure if that is known or not. I think it's still up in the air. But if it does operate on some kind of quantum mechanic level, it means that it's not actually possible to just copy a human and print out a new one. You would have to teleport it, which is the only thing allowed by quantum mechanics. You can't copy.
I'm not familiar with the you can't copy piece. I do know that, like, if you were to teleport, not through like a wormhole, but like disassembled and then reassembled, you would be basically like what's happening if you were to like upload your brain to the internet. You're not like then uploaded to the internet. It's just that a copy of something that thinks that it's you and has all the same memory is uploaded to the internet, but you still exist and maybe you die. The same thing's happening in teleportation, unless you're going through some sort of wormhole and you're actually like, going I'm not. I don't know how wormholes work, but it would be like a one-to-one path. Like it's basically whatever. Like time is bent over on itself, and you're actually moving your physical being through that. You're not being disassembled and like rushed over there.
Yeah, so that one, I saved that for last because I'm not the most confident about it, but it feels like this is another one that's going to turn into a bunch of nerds argued for a while on whether it was possible or not, and then the universe laughed in those nerds' faces, and it turned out that, like, they were both right. And I just, I can definitely, to bring this full circle here, imagine a world where it is some kind of tricky scenario where, like, human level intelligences are like possible but not in the way that we're imagining them. So I don't know, it's interesting to think about.
Yeah, I find it really cool that, like, going back to the near the speed of light thing, that's basically saying that time travel is possible but only forward. Like you can't time travel backwards, but you could time travel forward by getting into some train that goes around the earth at near the speed of light or whatever. And that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I actually did the calculations once on what radius you would require to make some kind of like time travel like loop thing, time travel hula hoop or whatever.
Yeah.
Like torus. And I think it's actually somewhere around like the size of the Oort cloud, which is, out past Pluto, if you want to keep regular Earth gravity, because you're turning constantly, so. But still.
I wonder, like, how far into the future, like an astronaut that's been in space for, like, 6 months or something, they are. It's probably, like, a millisecond, but it's, like, kind of happened.
The guy that's been on the space station longest, there is, like, a statistic on, like, this guy technically is a fraction of a millisecond faster into the future. Like, it's not at all significant just from the International Space Station, but, I mean, it's not nothing. It's a number. So it's pretty cool stuff.
We need to get to work on Time Machine.
And I wanted to mention too that there is a cool book called Tau. I always forget if it's Tau 0 or Tau 1. It's a book, so they build a spaceship that can go near the speed of light, but basically they can't slow down. And spoilers, so skip this part if you want to read it, but they end up actually going to like the end of the universe, and then the universe like starts again, and they just go into the new universe. So they kind of like in a roundabout way go back in time by just going to the end of the universe and then coming full circle back to the new universe.
I don't quite understand that.
Well, it's like the universe happens and then it collapses, like Big Crunch type thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they just basically wait it out. And then another universe happens, and they just slow down in the new universe. So it's also in an episode of Futurama.
I might look that up. I'll wait for the show notes.
There's the whole book, which is like pretty long, and then there's another one called there's Tau 0 by Poul Anderson, and then there's To Outlast. I think it's like To Outlast Infinity. But I read the short story because I was not all about that character development stuff. And it just gets the basic concept across without going into like a lot of drama. And I appreciated that.
Yeah, I'll look that up.
I have a conspiracy.
Oh.
My thinking, Gil, so I watch shows on Hulu and I don't have I do have the ads, right? You can pay and not get ads, but there's a less expensive ad version. I have that. I get the exact same ads every time. My theory, because I think this is possible, is that Hulu has a little checkbox that they check whenever they're serving me an ad. And then when that checkbox is checked, they go look at whatever behind the scenes databases exist that have like activity about my online or information about my online activity. And I suspect maybe Hulu looks at that and says, did Paul Google something or go on Facebook at the same time that he was being served this Hulu ad? And I want to say maybe, I mean, if they're not doing this, it feels like maybe they should be doing it, but maybe they determine which ads to show and whether to keep showing the same ad depending on whether your attention was there. And they determine that by if you were doing something else on your phone.
I have not heard of anything like that. I've never been a part of like Hulu ad buys. Like we've done, it's like a lot of like AdWords and Facebook and even some like Pandora. But I don't think that would even, clearly it's possible, but I don't think it's possible right now to get it down to like by the second.
Even like minute, their whole minute commercials.
Yeah, I would say that they can definitely do something though, like muting or something like that.
Muting?
But yeah, I don't know the answer to that. Yeah, I would assume they could get like, because they're receiving inputs from the remote in some way, so I'm sure they can know whether or not it was muted.
Oh, I didn't think of that. That's pretty clever. They're doing that.
Yeah, I'm sure they've got to be doing something though. But I don't know if they could do like your exact online history at that like second that ad was playing.
Yeah, or they could maybe even just be looking at, I don't know if they can get from if you're playing it on the web client, just like look at your either just CPU and see like, is it up? Then, oh, okay, that he's Googling something because he's obviously not just staying on Hulu.
Yeah.
But I'm watching it on my like, it's a smart TV, right? But it's like, you know, these things are pretty limited. And I don't know, maybe they can get the like whether it's muted or not information from that TV though.
I'm sure they could, and maybe they are doing this, but if they were to place something themselves, like when you visit Hulu.com, to then know. But I'm trying to think of like where they would get that from, and if like Facebook or Google would have that level of detail for them to use in that way. But if they place something themselves, like when you were visiting Hulu to sign up or to do the like code or whatever to log into your TV, they could place a cookie or whatever it would be, some sort of thing to track that. I would assume that I don't know. I bet they're probably doing something like that.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it. The other thing is I assume that Spotify, when I use their app, is logging like I don't know if this is true, but I just assume they can like perfectly recreate every button push and timestamp of when I clicked things and like the accelerometer data at the time. And maybe that's over the top and they don't do all that, but I don't know. Are they? Maybe they are.
I would say they do have every button press that you've made, but I don't know about accelerometer.
Like, I wonder if they have enough data that they could just like say, this is, you know, play by play for 1 minute's worth of Paul using Spotify and like the orientation of the phone and, you know, where he pressed and all that stuff. Because I think they could do that. And the app certainly behaves like they're doing that. It's pretty bloated, so.
Yeah, I've used things before that were like, I mean, they're essentially heat maps, but you could see, and even just in like standard Google Analytics, you can see everything that somebody clicked on in what order.
Mm-hmm.
And like basically what time. But yeah, I'm sure that they could recreate that. And now that I think about it, like, why aren't they, like, it feels like they could use that data in some useful way to predict what I want to do more often.
Yeah, it's kind of a win-win. I mean, it's creepy, but in theory, everybody wins, maybe.
Yeah. That's the thing about advertising, is every time you hear about some new thing that you can do, and your initial thought is like, oh, that's cool, we can sell that to a client. And then after that, you're like, oh man, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
Do you listen to ads when you're listening to a podcast, or do you fast forward?
If it's a new one, most of the time I will actually learn something. I will just let it play.
I always fast forward.
Yeah? Well, so occasionally, two things. One, if it's new, it's like legitimately something I want to learn about, and I don't know what it is about podcast ads, but they are really good at like knowing sort of what I'm going to be interested in. You know, these like Squarespace, Backblaze type Audible ads. It's like, it's the things I'm interested in. I don't know. I'm that kind of person that listens to podcasts and they know that.
Yeah, I mean, they are relevant for the most part because I listen to podcasts that I like, and then they will serve ads on the kinds of people that like that kind of podcast. But like, I've used like the coupon codes or whatever for different podcasts to get whatever discount it is. But like an ad that just said, hey, this is for, you know, Blue Apron, go to blueapron.com/thinkularity for 10% off. That would be just as effective as like the 60-second ads that I always get. So I'll fast forward through. It's like, oh, okay, blue, Blue Apron. Oh, okay, Casper, and then I'll just fast forward through.
Well, yeah. So when they don't tell me what it is, in my wanting to learn kind of thing, I sometimes do listen until I hear, okay, this is obviously the thing, and then I'm just like, I already know about Skillshare.
Right.
But I mean, they probably know what they're doing, and it's probably worth it to make it like a full drawn out explanation, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, clearly they're making like they can see who used that coupon code, so I know that it's working. But like there are the people that have like Joe Rogan will have just like 10 minutes of ads in the beginning of his show, or like H3H3 will have like 5 minutes of ads in the middle of the show. Like I don't understand how the like middle portion of those ads anybody is sticking around for all of that. But like the way Hello Internet does it is they'll do like a 60-second ad or something. They'll do like them spread out throughout the show. Those make sense.
I'm not familiar with any kind of ads except for the like 30-ish second ones that are in, well, I guess it's a couple minutes for podcasts, but like either YouTube, sometimes they stick an ad somewhere in the actual video, and then podcasts, I don't know, is there a word for this, like in content ads?
Yeah.
Native? Is this native? Not really.
Yeah, I don't know what you would call it. I guess, yeah, a native ad sounds right. But then there's like reply all. They'll play music throughout their ads so you can tell when the ad started and ended. I really like that for fast forwarding, but also like they're kind of playing to both. Like you want to listen, but you also, if you want to fast forward, you're not going to miss 15 seconds of whatever conversation we're having. So I don't know.
It's a weird scenario where you want to make it easy and not annoying for people, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, what ads used to be was like, you have to sit here and watch this whether you like it or not. But it's like, I think it's finally gotten to the point where just people are so annoyed and able to block those that the advertisers are just like, all right, we're going to put in an ad that is easily skippable, and you're still going to hear some of it, but like you'll feel like you won if you skip it, but a lot of people will still listen anyway.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that podcasts shouldn't have ads by any means. I mean, you've got to make money, but I just find it interesting that people are listening to all of it. And I think podcasts do ads better than anybody else because, like you said, you're kind of in control of what you want to do to that ad in every case.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was just listening to H3H3 yesterday, and it's like 6 minutes of ads, and I was like, I wonder how many people actually listen to all this.
Yeah, I haven't experienced that, and I don't think I'd hang around for that. Sometimes though, it's almost as good as the podcast, and I just keep listening, or I'm doing something with my hands, and it's just not feasible to skip.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put a link to. There's a guy on YouTube, Austin something, maybe, if that's the right one that I'm thinking of. But he has an ad. He was like paid to do an ad by Squarespace, and the ad he did for Squarespace was a YouTube video, like in its entirety.
Yeah.
And it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I've seen YouTube videos like that. I watched this one guy that does like woodworking stuff. So he's sponsored by a bunch of like woodworking tool companies, and he'll do projects like centered around that tool. And it was like, okay, that's a good job. It's like good content. You're I know the whole thing. It's like you're not trying to like slide one by me. The whole thing is clearly an ad, but you're making it interesting. So great work.
Yeah, and there's a guy called Nick Shabazz. He reviews gear.
Oh yeah.
And he has a little piece of paper that he brings out that says like sponsored when he does one of those. Not even like sponsored. I think they just sent the thing to him, and he gets to maybe keep it. So I was like, is that sponsorship? I don't know.
Yeah.
But actually, he's like really harsh usually. So if he's sponsored, it's like hard for him to be really harsh, and that's almost a little bit of a conflict. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess that's something else, is like if I'm watching like a review for something and it's clearly an ad. Like for the woodworking guy that I was talking about, it's more like about the build and his techniques for the build, and like the tools that he's using is like, you don't need to have that tool to do whatever it is. It's just kind of like he used that. But when it comes to like reviewing something, that's tricky because you have to like actually know the person doing the review and that they'll be honest, because paid good reviews is like that's not helpful for anybody.
Yeah, tricky business.
All right, well, if you like the show, you can review us on iTunes. That would be very helpful. Paul has some really cool new show notes situation going on, so you can go down there and click on that. We'll have links to anything that we talked about, as well as how you can support the show or visit us on Reddit.
Yeah. I mean, you can click on it if your podcast player notices a link and makes it a hyperlink. That's a little bit of a problem because some of them don't, but it's easy enough to type into the URL. So
yeah, and the way he has it set up is that you can do basically episode number.thinkularity.co, and it'll take you to the show notes for whatever episode you want.
Yeah, but with a 0 in our format that we're doing.
Yeah, 3 digits.
I could change it, I guess, but
I like the 3 digits.
Yeah, maybe I'll make both work though.
It implies we'll make it to 999.
Oh, we will, Gil. We will.